It's that whole process of figuring out what is best for you to be ready for that big sales pitch. Is it a case of then asking senior guys, asking people, hey, how did you figure out what was best got you in the best mental mindset to go into that room to give yourself the best opportunity to close that deal? Discipline isn't when to getting yourself out to do whatever you're supposed to do when you feel good. Discipline is when you don't want to do it and you still make yourself go do what you need to do. As a pro athlete, you're treated really like a 10-year-old. Be here when I tell you to be here, eat when I tell you to eat, work out when I tell you to work out, leave when I tell you to leave, be here again when I tell you to be here. You have no basically personal accountability in anything. Everything is organized for when you need to be there.
What's the most important lesson you've learned from your athletic career that you think would be valuable for our listeners and sales professionals?
I think we touched a lot upon.
You are listening to the Best Sellers podcast presented by Doug Dvorak, where the focus is elevating your sales boom. The Best Sellers podcast, your ultimate destination for winning sales strategies.
Hi, this is Doug Dvorak, founder and managing principal of the Sales Coaching Institute, and your host on the Best Seller podcast. It's a high honor and privilege to introduce a friend, but also an incredible human being and an incredible athlete, Casey Keller. Hi, Casey. How are you?
Doug, thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Casey is going to be our guest today, where we're going to be talking about a mindset from a professional athlete and how we can take some of those secrets and strategies and tactics and incorporate them into our sales day, because we truly are sales athletes. Casey's an American former professional soccer player who played in the U.S. and in Europe, had a storied career as the starting goaltender for the U.S. national team. He's a four-time FIFA World Cup participant and was the first American goalkeeper to become a regular in the German Bundesliga, the English Premier League, and the Spanish La Liga. I know you had an incredible youth career. You had an incredible collegiate career at the University of Portland, Olympic athlete, World Cup. It's an honor to be here, Casey. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Casey, how do you think mental preparation for a big game or competition compares to preparing for an important sales presentation or sales meeting?
Well, I think a lot of people look at professional athletes and they think that it's 99% gifts from God physically, and then somehow you figure it out after that. And, truly the world is full with great athletes. And what takes you to that professional level, what takes you not only to the professional level, but then to succeed for a long career in the professional level, so much of that is the mental aspect of how you deal with the multiple different facets that come into the mental approach for the game. And, look, number one, it starts with discipline. Number two, it then proceeds into the way you process all the difficulties that come. You go from a normal kind of working environment where you're in that interaction with the people around you, the kind of the people that then your job puts you in touch with. With the athlete, you look at multiple sides of that. You look at, first of all, the players and the coaches and the staff that you're dealing with on that side of how you approach things. But then you also have to understand that when you're playing, it's the 50,000 plus people in the stands, but then it's also potentially the 100 million plus watching on television, and then everything that comes with that. So how you approach yourself mentally to prepare for that, it's a process. It's where you start. You mentioned kind of my youth career. And then how you prepare yourself to play in a match where, hey, maybe if I don't play well here, I don't get selected to this team. I then don't get that opportunity to go higher. And then on each step, it continues to grow and grow and grow. Sometimes dealing with the mental side of stuff is, how do I deal with the mental side of being successful? How do I deal with the mental side of not being successful? How do I deal with all these other external elements that come into play? And it's then how you're able to compartmentalize, to put yourself in better situations, either off the field, on the field, in the locker room, with family, the dynamic with that. It's such a massive approach to how you're doing things. Now, maybe it's more in a fishbowl being a pro athlete, but it's the similar principles that you have to do in your normal work life as well. How are you preparing for a huge sales pitch that you have to make, but then your wife is telling you that you got to get the kids to school, and then external pressures, friends are saying, hey, we got this big party, you got to come out the night before. Well, no, you can't come out the night before because you have this big sales pitch. And how do you find a way to balance all that? That is the mental side of being a pro athlete, which also translates into the mental side of being a great salesperson, because it's not just, hey, I had a good meal before the night, I went to the gym during the week or whatever. No, it's the total approach to it. And I think that's the mental side of professional athletes, but it also where it translates into the mental side of just your person in the workforce.
That's a great set of principles and wisdom. I want to just add on to that first question. 24 hours in advance, can you, or 8 hours or 12 hours, can you just walk us through, sort of your mental checklist? Did it involve, or mental preparation, did it involve visualization? Like you said, taking care of yourself, good meal, getting to bed early. Any top 3 things that you did in the 24 hours between a huge game?
For me, the mental preparation for the game started, well, there's a lot of books, there's a lot of different things that how there is no 24 hours before. It's a 365-day approach to each game. But we'll break it down into where my mental approach started, specifically for the next game, was when training was over the day before. And that was when I started to prep for the match mentally. So much of it starts with kind of where you are in your off the field life. So depending on what I needed, did I need a little bit of treatment? Was I dealing with a little bit of an injury that I needed to get some specific work for after training? Then obviously there's the team meal, there's the meeting before. And then you're kind of going home and it's, I can't be on my feet. I can't be doing a bunch of different things because I also, in the mental side of it, you're also preparing for the physical side. So I can't be running around doing a bunch of things because I still have to have that 100% physical preparation for the match. Because look, Doug, so much of what I have to do to get ready for a match is everything that I do during the week in training. But I'm not judged on what I do in that week in training. I'm judged on that 90 minutes on the pitch where 100 million people are watching, not on, hey, look, I made this great save in training. Okay, no, that great save in training is then getting me in a good mental place to know that when that 90 minutes comes and the ref blows the whistle, I am in the perfect position to be able to perform. Now, we all know it's impossible to perform 100%. But if you don't give yourself that preparation, at least from me, where it went from day one. Now, one thing I did, which some of my bosses at ESPN told me later that they didn't appreciate, is I didn't talk to the press the day before a match. To me, that was a distraction for getting ready to play. I have all week. I'll do whatever you want. I'll do it after the game. I'll do it 2 days before. I'll do whatever. I didn't want to be dealing with interviews, somebody telling me I'm great, somebody telling me I'm not in good form, I'm not in whatever. At that stage, I wanted to say, I want to focus on tomorrow first and foremost. And that was also part of my preparation was understanding it. Then, of course, it's going home, having understanding, family environment, to know that there's certain things that maybe I would normally do during the week, but maybe that day before the match, I wouldn't, because I'm getting in that frame of mind to be able to perform at my optimal ability on the match, where it's so visual. It's so everybody can see what I did. And, and then the highlights are going all week after that. So if I did have a good game or I did make mistakes, it wasn't over when the ref blew the whistle for the end of the match, because that was being replayed until the next round of games came. And then if it was exceptional, maybe it had a little more life, and it was exceptionally bad, it had a life of its own as well. So those are factors. And then it comes down to, over your career, you figure out what is the best preparation for you. And that alters as you get older or whatever else. So for me, it was then, if the kids weren't sleeping well or whatever, maybe I went into a guest bedroom There were certain times when we had friends over and it was busy. So then in England, you slept at home the night before a home match. In Spain and Germany, you were in a hotel anyway, so it didn't really matter. But let's say we had friends over and whatever, and things weren't great, and I didn't have a guest bedroom to go into. If I felt that I needed to be away from things a little bit, then maybe I would call the club and say, hey, can you put me in the team hotel, the night before the match? So it's all that recognition of what you need to do to be ready to go for when the referee blows the whistle to start the match. And everybody's different. I was also a person that, to me, I slept in the morning of a match and was very lazy. Other people, they had to get up, they had to go for walks, they had to do things to keep either to keep themselves active. So it's that whole process of figuring out what is best for you to be ready for that big sales pitch, that big whatever. And is it a case of then asking senior guys, asking people, hey, what do you do? How did you figure out what was best, got you in the best mental mindset to go into that room, to give yourself the best opportunity to close that deal? And again, it's sometimes it's a little trial and error. Sometimes it's, hey, that worked well. Let's continue doing that. I'm not a superstitious guy. I always felt that superstitions were for people that were ill prepared. And so they needed some lucky charm to get them through something because they weren't actually ready to and they were hoping that some mystical power was going to get them over the top because they weren't ready to do it themselves. But don't confuse figuring out what is comfortable and what is worked and what is going on with superstition. Putting your left shoe on before your right shoe wasn't going to make me win a match, but making sure that my boots were properly taken care of, my gloves were in the right situation to best prepare to catch a game, to catch a ball so that I made the save and I didn't give up a rebound to concede a goal. That was what was important. And that was all part of that process.
Awesome.
That mental process, because you're right. It's physical is one thing, but the mental process is probably the totality of everything you're doing to get prepared.
Great. Thank you for those pearls of wisdom. Casey, in sports, you often have to perform under pressure, immense pressure. How do you manage stress and maintain focus? And how might this apply to high-stake sales situations?
Well, I referred to some of the previously of the pressure that comes with being a pro athlete. It's not you have a tough day at the office and a couple people know about it. I have a tough day at the office and potentially 100 million people know about it. It's what is the pressure of, if I don't close this deal, I can't pay my mortgage. I can't put the kids in school. I can't put food on the table. So the pressure is relative to the situation that you're in. I'm pressured. I didn't play my first match in front of 100 million people. You build up to it. And then, when you figure out that, maybe things aren't particularly going as well as I would like, or I'm not handling this as well as maybe I would like to. Look into different things that you need to do. I went to a sports psychologist at one stage because I wasn't enjoying what I was doing. Most people know if you're not enjoying what you're doing, you're not going to perform at the level you're going to perform at. So I went to somebody to kind of help me through some of these situations. But I think dealing with pressure, again, is preparation. And I think if you're 100% prepared, if you're going into a meeting and you've put the work in, you're well versed on product you're trying to sell, you know enough about your competition's products to be able to answer any questions that the person you're trying to sell to is going to ask you. You then, if you've got a good night's sleep, you're not hungover because your friend's bachelor party the night before and you didn't have the discipline to say, hey, I'll go for an hour and be supportive and have one drink and then go home and get a good night's sleep. Well, if you haven't put yourself into that position, then the pressure is going to become great because you know internally that you're not really prepared for the situation at hand. I also love a little bit of nervous energy. I don't think you can perform at your best if you're so overconfident that you're thinking, oh yeah, I got this. I'm coming into this meeting. Yeah, I'm the smartest man in the room. I know exactly everything that you're going to throw to me. Now you're in trouble in that situation as well. Understand the ramifications at hand. Understand that you've put yourself in the best possible position to perform. It's interesting then how the pressure seems to go away to a degree. I think, like I said, you still have to have that little bit of nervous energy. You have to have that little bit in the back of your mind that I got to get this right. I did things sometimes to help alleviate pressure, which a lot of sports psychologists disagreed with. But then when I explained it to them, they understood what I was doing. I liked to have an image of failure in my head. I like to tell myself, hey, if you don't concentrate on this little ball, this shot that isn't difficult, and it goes through your hands and it goes through your legs, what does that feel like? Does that sharpen the focus to make sure that I do take every little thing, I don't take it for granted, that I concentrate wholly on a thing? So if I was going to translate into a Salesforce, what happens when I go into a room and I don't have the answer that the guy's looking for? And why do I not have the answer that he's looking for? Did I not do the work that I needed to do to prep for this match? And put in your head, what does that feel like? What does that feel like to not be prepared, to not have the answer to the question, so that before I go in, I checked all the boxes that I needed to check. So I understood what that felt like, and I wasn't going to have to deal with that feeling because I was that little bit more prepared than I thought I was.
That's really interesting because I have a variety of business leaders, athletes like yourself, high-performing individuals that are in a high-stress, high-stakes environment, and 90 to 95% do not say what you just did relative to mental checklist and visualization. It's 95% of the time getting the gold medal, winning. I love, maybe visualize that, think about that. But what is the outcome if I'm not successful? To your point, I think that's more powerful.
Well, I think it resharpens because, like I said, there's a problem with overconfidence. And I think we've all seen that in athletes in particular, because it's what you see on TV. You don't see the CEO go into the meeting and act like an arrogant ass because it's just not public information. But you've seen plenty of athletes look like arrogant asses. And then when it bounces off his hands and he loses the touchdown catch or goes through the goalkeeper's legs or the striker doesn't score the goal that he should have scored, and you've seen him prancing around like a complete idiot for months, then that's when they come down on you. I think if you have that humility to say to yourself, yes, look, I know I have to have a level of hubris to perform at the level that I performed at to get to where I've got to, but also I think have a level of humility to be able to say, you know what, I'm not going to perform every time at the peak, but how can I visualize to make sure that I understand that I'm not superhuman. I'm not something that is unobtainable, that have that humility, show that at least in your own head, and then refocus yourself. Why have you seen that with boxers so often? They do great, great, great. Then they get knocked out and they're done because they've put themselves in this mind frame that I am invincible. Well, no, you're not invincible. And if you do make a mistake and you do get caught, you can recover from it. And I think sometimes when you put yourself in this level of invincibility, it's just a fallacy that's unobtainable, and you will be found out. And then you have to start over again.
Interesting. Kasey, athletes constantly work on improving their skills. How do you approach continuous improvement, and how can salespeople adopt a similar mindset?
So the old cliche for professional athletes is you play to your strengths, but you work on your weaknesses. Look, everybody knows. I mean, you look at it doesn't matter. Pick a sport. Every pro athlete has that one thing that is why they're in the team. Now, can they do 2 or 3 other things that keep them in the team? But there always has to be that one thing that, okay, this is what you are and you're really good at. This sets you apart from everybody else. And these are the other things. And then you think, well, maybe he's not quite as good at this. Okay, I'm going to work on that. But then I'm not going to forget what my strength is. That is my strength. And I think so what you're always trying to do is you're always trying to get that little bit better, those little percentages, but you still have to rely on what got you there in the first place. And I think sometimes people forget that. They get told something and they say, well, I wish you were better at this. So then I focus 100% on that and I forget what I'm actually really good at, which got me here in the first place. So always kind of look for those little tools that you think you can improve on. And, is it communication? Is it reliability? Is it, what are those things that has kind of held you back from getting to that next level? Continue to be the person that got you there in the first place, but then always saying, okay, where can I go here? What can I do there? And then as you become more and more experienced, your strengths become that much more stronger. And then your weaknesses become that little bit less. But don't think you're going to become something that you weren't from the beginning. Because look, every pro athlete has to start with one thing, and that's a genetic ability to be really good at the specific task at hand for that job in that pro sport. You look at some of the greatest quarterbacks ever. They don't have the physical attributes that the wide receiver has, that the linebacker has, at this. So he can't say, well, I know I only ran a 5.3 40, but I'm going to show you I'm the best scrambling quarterback there ever was. Well, no, you probably needed to run a 4.4 40 to be able to do that. So improve on the little pieces. Yes, can I scramble a little better than maybe I could because I'm that much better at recognizing, because of the experience of having 50, 60, 100 professional games, where then I can move in different areas, but I can't do what this other guy does. And vice versa. If that guy's always relied on his physical ability to get himself out of tricky circumstances, he then can't say, okay, I'm going to be a 5-step quarterback and be able to throw from the pocket, because that's not who I am. Can I get better at throwing in the pocket? Can I get better at scrambling if that's not my main thing? But I still have to rely on what my strength is. And so you're always trying to find it. Now, does it mean you seek to find the person that can help you? Is it self-recognition? Is it whatever it is that needs to improve your weaknesses? Fantastic. But then continue to rely on your strength.
Excellent. Kasey, how do you handle setbacks, or how did you handle setbacks or losses in professional soccer? And what advice would you give to salespeople dealing with rejection or lost deals? Because there are a lot of deals that go south, that they don't win. You put time, energy, focus. So how did you deal with that rejection, and what advice would you give to salespeople dealing with rejection or lost deals?
You know why a lot of universities and employers like people that played team sports? Is because they had to deal with loss. Because they had to understand that nobody's ever played a sport and have never lost. You always have to deal with loss. That's why they call it winning and losing. It's not just winning. Nobody ever just wins. And so when you're in a work environment and you're in a situation where you've had to deal with that, it's much easier than the person that, oh, I've only always got A's. I've only always done this. I've never had to deal with setbacks. If you're in sports, you're always dealing with setbacks. That's just part of the way it is. And you have to recognize, kind of how you prepare for that. So I think first and foremost, what you look at, and this is what, I think most players look at within a team environment is, okay, did I do what I was asked within the team environment? Did I do everything that I could to help us win a game, get a draw, for a successful outcome? And I think and if you take that into a sales environment and you say, again, we talked about the mental side, the physical side, the stuff like that. If I have prepared myself to give myself the best opportunity to close this deal, and okay, circumstances come about. Maybe it wasn't the right time for that company. Maybe it just wasn't quite the right product that they were looking for. There's a whole bunch of things. But did I do everything I possibly could to put myself in that position to close that deal? And then it's being able to get feedback as well and finding out, okay, if I didn't, then what were the circumstances that I could have improved on to possibly make sure that this doesn't happen again? Look, we have everything now. We have a ton of data analytics. We have obviously replays. We have, you go back, you watch the tape, you do everything, and you sit back and you go back and you go, okay, did I put myself, was my angle right? Was my footwork right? Or in the end, was the case where another world-class athlete did something that was better than what I could have possibly physically been able to do. In goalkeeping, we talk about the different situations when we concede a goal. And we call it, could I have saved it? Should I have saved it? And no chance was I ever going to save it. And so you kind of analyze that and you look and you say, okay, yeah, maybe I could have been a little bit here, or yeah, I didn't quite get the strong enough step on that to give myself an opportunity to make the save. Was my hand position wrong? Whatever. And then, oh yeah, that was a mistake. I should have saved that. I completely messed up on that goal. And then it was, everything was right. I did everything I could have done. And it was just a great shot. And I think if you analyze kind of situations based on that, when you go into a meeting that was either successful or unsuccessful, you kind of look at it and say, okay, what could I have done better? What should I have done better? And then, you know what? I put a really good presentation together here, and it just wasn't right for the timing of the company that I went to, and a bunch of different external situations that just didn't align at that time.
Great. Couple more questions, then we'll wrap this up. Kasey, how do you think the discipline required in professional sports compares to the self-discipline needed to succeed in sales?
Again, we've touched on this a little bit throughout, the different questions, but discipline is extremely important to success in anything you're doing, in a marriage, in school, in whatever else. Look, we all have a talent. Whatever that talent is, I think every person has something that if they recognize and they cultivate, that they have an opportunity of being successful at whatever level makes sense for whatever occupation you decide to go into. But if you don't have discipline, they said discipline isn't when to getting yourself out to do whatever you're supposed to do when you feel good. Discipline is when you don't want to do it and you still make yourself go do what you need to do. As a pro athlete, you're treated really like a 10-year-old.
Really? Unpack that for me. I wouldn't think that.
Be here when I tell you to be here. Eat when I tell you to eat. Work out when I tell you to work out. Leave when I tell you to leave. Be here again when I tell you to be here. You have no basically personal accountability in anything. Everything is organized for when you need to be there. Now the level of discipline that comes is, I'm supposed to be at training an hour and a half before training comes. I have to be on the training pitch at this particular time. So you have to have enough discipline to be able to hit all those things. Now, to get to that point, and we've all seen it. We've all seen guys, and it truly blows me away, is you have guys that have all the ability in the world. All of it. I knew guys, Doug, that would be late for the time they needed to come to training, late for the time they needed to be on the pitch, late for the team meeting after they were late to the team meal. Now, you have to have so much ability for them to be able to deal with that, but they can't wait for the moment that somebody's better than you are to get rid of you. And those are just little, those are examples from pro athletes, but I'm going to go back to, how I got to be a pro athlete, because there was so many external influences out there trying to stop you from doing whatever you're doing. And when you're starting talking about the elite of the elite, you have to be, I think, first and foremost, discipline has to be number one. I'm going to go back to high school. So everybody, okay, there's a party here, there's this, I didn't drink. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying that just because I still think having a beer with your friends or whatever else isn't a big deal. But it is the discipline to be able to say, it's Friday night, I've got training on Saturday morning, and I got a match on Sunday. But I still want to be social with my friends. Can I go out? Can I go to a party? Can I be social? Can I have a bottle of water instead of 5 beers? Can I then go home at a reasonable hour? Can I get a good night's sleep? Can I be ready for training in the morning? Then Saturday night comes along and my friends said, hey, let's get together here. Okay, I can come out because I'm disciplined enough to know that I'm not going to drink, that I'm going to leave at the proper time, that I'm going to get home to have a good night's sleep so I can perform at the best on the match on Sunday. Oh, heck, it's just a stupid practice on Saturday. I can have some beers and come out. And and still be able to perform. And then I can go out again. And I mean, this game's not a big deal. This team's not very good. My team's great. I can do it. I was speaking at one stage with a friend of mine had become the manager of the U.S. under-20 national team. And he was trying to get some of the ex-players to come in at different times and kind of coach and speak. And, and so he asked me one time after dinner if you could, kind of talk to the kids. And I remember talking to the kids and I'm saying, hey, look, I said, you guys bar, maybe 5 to 10 guys that are either through injury or just weren't available for this camp or whatever, are the best 19, 20-year-olds in the country. But understand, there's not a more ruthless profession in the world than pro sports. I said, because guess what? 2 more years, there's another group of 18, 19-year-olds who are the best 18, 19-year-olds in the country. And now you're going to go from this stage to try to make it to the next level. And do you understand that enable for you to be successful and to fulfill your dreams, you have to crush his. Every day you crush his dreams, because the day you don't crush his dreams, he crushes yours. And if you don't give yourself the discipline to be every day at practice, to be better, to not let that player get one over on you, because as soon as he gets it over on you, your dream's over. And it is. It's a really, really difficult mindset. And I the thing that I struggle with, Doug, is the guys that have and women that have so much ability, but just can't get out of their own way. They just can't say, you know what? I don't need to be at that party until 2 a.m. the night before practice. I can go there. I can be social. I can go home at 11. I can have a glass of wine and I can come back and I can get a good night's sleep. And I can make sure that nobody crushes my dream the next day. But much easier said than done. And it's no different from going out. If you're always fighting to be in the best situation, guess what? Somebody who's put themselves in a better position is going to take your job away, is going to take that promotion, is going to take, the boss is going to say, wait a minute, I don't know exactly why, but I feel like he's better at this account that is going to make me higher commissions, that is going to different things. Because the level of discipline to put yourself in a better position, not just on the day of the sales pitch, but in everything that leads up to it, to know that you're in a better position. And, when you get older in pro sports, a lot of times what happens is your contracts get more incentivized, because basically what the club's saying is look, we can pay you a good salary, but what we don't want to do is we want to pay somebody that's injured the whole time. So when they start incentivizing your contract for how many games you play and that you're fit and that you're doing all these things, well, at the same time, you know that because of who you are and what you've done and what you've become, you're going to be on a much bigger salary, probably base salary, than the young kid who's trying to take your job away. So what happens if I don't come into training every day? Now, we already talked about that. I don't get judged. I don't get judged on what I do in training. I get judged on the 90 minutes of the match that I'm played at. But where I am judged is I'm judged by the coaches and I'm judged by my teammates every day in training. And if I'm getting beat every day in training by this young kid who's making a quarter of the salary that I'm on, and another several, hundreds of thousands of more dollars based on my appearance fees and my performance bonuses, you don't think that club wants to get rid of me and pay this kid for the next couple of years that's making significantly less than I am? I can't give them an excuse. So, okay, everyone knows I'm not going to have a great game every time I play. So I'm still being judged by the match. And if you want to put it in sales terms, I'm being judged by how I close, by how I make the sale. But if every day the bosses see that this kid is looking better, the minute you don't close, they can't wait to get rid of you to put this other person in and save money. So that's why you always make sure every day you come in, you're performing and you're putting yourself in a position to perform.
Excellent, Kasey. 2 last questions. One, what's the most important lesson you've learned from your athletic career that you think would be valuable for our listeners and sales professionals?
I think we touched a lot upon is putting yourself in a position to perform day in and day out. Don't give anybody an excuse because you were unprepared, because you were unprofessional, because you were more interested in something else that distracted away from the task at hand. So put yourself in an environment that gives you the best opportunities to succeed. I said in multiple interviews, I never, ever would have had the success that I had if I hadn't had the stable family life off the pitch. The more consistent you are off the pitch, the more consistent you are on the pitch. And I don't think it's any different than in a workforce. How consistent you are away from work can make your work life that much more consistent. If everything is all over the place in your life and you're juggling 100 different things over here, how can you be focused over here? So find out how to be as stable as possible, because if you're completely in this crazy world, how do you think your work life isn't going to be?
Excellent. Kasey, one last question as we end our podcast. You've got a dinner reservation tomorrow for 4. You're one of the guests, and you can invite 3 other guests to have dinner with. The alive, past, present, dead. Who would those individuals be and why?
I've had to say this a few times in different things. And at one time, I think I said something, like, let's bring, Jesus, Buddha, and Mohammed and get this whole religious thing sorted out in one dinner conversation. I think what's really difficult, Doug, is if you have a very well-rounded life. Do I want to sit down with past soccer stars? I've sat down a lot of my life at dinners with soccer stars. I've been fortunate enough to go to state dinners at the White House. I've been fortunate enough to do crazy stuff like fly with the Blue Angels and then have them over at my house for a barbecue. I got rock star friends. I got movie star friends. I don't try to label anything. I always look at it and I look at it and go, you know what? The next 3 people I have dinner with are the most important 3 people I'm having dinner with. I'm not looking to, oh, wow, I got to meet this person, or maybe I come from an environment because I've had so many of those cool situations that it doesn't, I'm not like searching it out. But then at the same time, I've been in environments with heads of state, with very famous people. And I think, you know what? That person's really nice. I'll have dinner with them again. And if I never see this person again the rest of my life, I could care less how famous they are because they're an ass. I don't want to spend any time with them. So I'm happy to spend time with someone famous, someone not famous, someone wealthy, someone not wealthy. You know what? If it's 3 people I'm having a good time with, then it's 3 people I'm having a good time with.
Well said. Kasey, thanks for being our guest. Our guest has been Casey Keller, superstar in the soccer / football world, and now an ESPN commentator. Kasey, thanks for your time. Great takeaways. I think for me, so much has resonated, but what I really liked, and I had top of mind like Nadal and Djokovic, those sports figures that have their suspicions, but I love not implying that they have that, but suspicions are for the ill-prepared. But great relating your professional soccer career to a professional sales athlete, mental preparedness, mental toughness, discipline. Thanks for your time. Bestsellers Podcast Nation, please check us out at salescoach.us/podcast. Good luck, good selling, and carpe diem. If you made it all the way here, thank you for listening to the Bestsellers Podcast, your ultimate destination for winning sales strategy. We hope you loved this episode. Be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on your favorite podcast platform to never miss an episode. See you on the next one.